The West Virginia Mountaineers have exceeded expectations so far this season. They roll into Fort Worth this weekend. Saturday night game with the Carter. We'll see if they can continue that. We have a special guest to preview the Mountaineers next here on Locked On Horned Frogs.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
That's right. It is Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. I'm Steven Simcox, and next to me in the box is Keenan Cummings. You can follow him on Twitter or X. I don't know what it's called anymore, Keenan. I still refer to it
call
as
it Twitter.
Okay. At Rivals Keenan on whatever you want to call that app that Elon Musk owns. And he covers West Virginia for the Rivals Network. WVsports.com is the website if you want to check out some of his work, get that insider information ahead of the game against TCU. And so first off, Keenan, I wanted to start with, I know it's not everything, but West Virginia was picked to finish last in the preseason poll by the media. At least from an outsider perspective, it seemed like Neal Brown was kind of on the hot seat. What were your expectations for this football team? And to this point, have they exceeded those? Is this what you thought this West Virginia team could be? Where were you kind of at before the season and now 4 weeks into the year?
I think before we start any of this, I think the whole preseason predictions, preseason looking at anything is just so impossible anymore with the transfer portal and turnover. I mean, it's hard enough to cover your own team. Forget trying to figure out the other 13 teams in the league. So I think most of that stuff, it really isn't worth the paper it's written on. And, I'm in the media, so, I'm telling you that. But I did think this was a better football team than many people thought would be. I thought West Virginia would be a lot better defensively, and they have been. Offensively was a concern. I thought they'd be able to run the football. I was worried about what they'd be able to do in the passing game, and so far that's kind of played out too. I thought coming into this year, I thought West Virginia would be a 6-6 football team. Right now I think that's, fair. That's a fair look at what I think it'll be. But yeah, I think this is it's surprised me, not really in the way they've done it, but how they've won some games here, in the early part of the season. And they were competitive at Penn State, for a lot of that game. You look at the final score and it's a little deceiving. West Virginia was in that thing, deep in the third quarter and just could not make plays. And it really allowed them to kind of run away with the ball game. But I think this is a West Virginia team that I'm not sure, if they're going to be competing for any type of Big 12 title or anything, but I think it's going to be a tougher draw than many people expected, when they first saw West Virginia was going to be on their schedule.
You talked about the offense, and I mean they've kind of found ways to stay in games and score when they needed to. The quarterback situation sort of in flux at the moment. Garrett Green had ankle injury, didn't play last week. What's his status at the moment, and do you get the sense that Nico Markle might get his second start in a row this Saturday?
It's really all going to depend on what Garrett can do. From what I understand, he's been able to do more this week than he did last week. Yeah, he is your starting quarterback. I think that could be up for debate depending on, what Nico continues to do. Obviously, you're not going to blow it away when you only throw, 99 yards as a team and 60 yards the week before. But he has won football games, and that does matter. When he's had to make plays, he's made them. But it's all going to depend on the health of Garrett. Neal is not going to throw Garrett out there if he can't run around and can't play. My understanding is he's doing more. So Neal has his radio show tonight. He'll address it. I'm not sure if he'll really give you much. He'll probably give you that game time decision type deal like he did last week. But I do think on the surface there's a much more realistic chance that Garrett could play than at any point last week.
Okay, what does the offense look much different? I mean, I watched a lot of the Tech game, and they did it looks like they did some good things. Nico's their leading rusher. I think they had 72 yards rushing, and they were rolling him out, moving the pocket. But it did feel kind of limited with what they could do. Are they similar QBs in their skill sets?
They both can run the ball, but they run the ball differently. Nico's more of a power type guy. He's got some speed, but Garrett is a fast guy. He can run the ball. He's more polished of a thrower at this point, not necessarily by his skill set, just his understanding of the offense and playing in games. He can throw the ball deep pretty well. I think that the offense, you're not going to confuse it with the Kansas City Chiefs, regardless of who's in there. But I do think the offense has more pop with Garrett, and they're able to throw the football more effectively. But this is how it goes with young quarterbacks. It takes a while. It takes them to make a jump. Garrett really struggled when he first got in there and given a shot outside running the ball. So you expect Markell, if he is given the keys to the offense yet again, it's going to look better, just like it looked better against Texas Tech than it did against Pitt. So I think it's going to continue to look better the more he plays, but they've got to find a way to throw the football. Teams know that they want to run it. They're stacking the box. I don't care how good your offensive line is. I don't care how good your running backs are. It's hard to run into a loaded box. So West Virginia's got to find a way to be able to at least effectively throw the football when they need to.
Yeah, C.J. Donaldson didn't have a super effective game last week, but he's run the ball really well the past few seasons for the Mountaineers. The O-line, did they return all 5 starters, Keenan, this year?
Yeah, well, they moved some guys around, but basically.
Okay.
From the end of the year, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so I know they've had some we've talked about the back and forth with the QB situation, but I mean, all along has this kind of been the plan to lean on this run game and an experienced O-line?
Yeah, I think that they would have been a little bit more aggressive, taking some deep shots and stuff. Like I said, if Garrett would have been in there, but the bread and butter of this team is going to be running the football and playing defense. Mm-hmm. They think that their offensive line is as good as any in the country. I think they returned some 136, 137 starts, coming into this season. That's a lot of starts and a lot of guys. Some of these guys are going to play in the NFL. Zach Frazier and probably Wyatt Milam. So it's a pretty good group up front. They've got a lot of experience, but as I said, you got a quarterback and a running back and 11 defenders. There's always going to be someone coming free, especially right after a line of scrimmage.
Does this feel like a true Neil Brown team? I mean, I know he's been around for a few years now, and with the portal, as you said, it's kind of a new look every season. But does this seem like that he has the type of guys that he wants on his roster finally on both sides of the ball?
I think in some spots, yes. They've got to get better at wide receiver. That's been an area where really they've struggled the past few years. They've had some guys that have made plays. Last year, Bryce Ford-Wheaton, Sam James, but overall the position struggled. A lot of drops, a lot of inconsistency. Defensively, this is more of the team that Neil has had since he's been here, as opposed to what you saw last year. West Virginia really improved down the stretch in Neil's first year. And then 2020, they were as good as anybody in the league defensively. 2021 took a little step back. Last year, that was not the defense that West Virginia's played. They were really bad, and they knew that. They missed on some guys in the portal, so they've got back to that. They want to run the football, controlled passing game. They'd like to be more explosive. They've talked about it a lot, but you got to make that happen. They have some young guys on the roster I think that they're excited about. A transfer from Marshall, E.J. Horton, that can really run at wide receiver, but it comes down to making plays. West Virginia just has not made enough to make teams respect them in the passing game.
When we come back, we'll discuss really what has made this team run so far, which is their defense and maybe, the matchup with this TCU football team. So we'll discuss that next with Keenan Cummings here on Locked On Horned Frogs. I do want to briefly mention FanDuel. You hear about them every week here. You see on the screen there if you're watching on YouTube, FanDuel.com/LockedOn. They still have this deal going on. I don't know how much longer it's going to be here, but if you're a new customer and you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn, just place a $5 bet down. Just put $5 down. That's it. You get up to $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is super easy to use as well, so you can download that today. They have a wide range of betting options, spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Another week of the NFL season kicks off tonight. Make sure you join FanDuel today and take advantage of that big deal while it still lasts. They're a sponsor here of the Locked On Network. So bringing Keenan back into the fold here. Yeah, this defense, man, they held Tech to 13 points. They held what looked like a pretty limited Pitt team to 6 points. But even in that Penn State game, you talked about that being a football game. They kind of hung around there on the back of their defense, right, until around the fourth quarter.
Yeah, Penn State got them in some things in their coverage, some rub routes and crossing patterns, and really exposed them. got them to show kind of what they were doing a little bit before pre-snap and really got them put in a blender at certain points that game. They fixed that since, but yeah, they held Penn State's rushing game in check, which, Penn State's got two of the best running backs in the country in their backfield and a very good offensive line. So against the run, they've played very well this year. Coverage-wise, struggled the first game. Didn't change much, didn't want to show anything against Duquesne, but past two games, Texas Tech is known for throwing the football around. They held them in check. And I do think Pitt is indeed limited on offense, but they also erased them too in that respect. So I think that the front seven, the defensive line, they roll in, 8 to 9 guys. They play a lot of guys, and they've been productive. There's not Dante Stills, for all those TCU fans that are used to seeing him for the last decade, it seems. There are no Stills brothers anymore, but they've got a lot of different guys, and really it's kind of a by committee group, and it's worked so far. The linebacker play has been excellent, probably West Virginia's best linebacker play really in several years with Lee Koba and Trey Lathan. So they've played really well in the front seven. The safeties are starting to play better. They got Marcus Floyd back, who's a transfer. He really kind of played out of position last year. Now they're kind of using him where he can really get his skill set, mixing him in between 3 different spots. So I think West Virginia feels pretty good where they're at, but this is going to be by far their biggest test, I think, even considering Penn State. That was, Drew All's first start. So I think this is going to be their biggest test by far, and we're going to walk away thinking, hey, this West Virginia defense is really good, or, hey, maybe they've still got some things to work on.
The defensive line, no more Stills brothers, which I think the rest of the nation rejoices, especially the Big 12 after what they did there in Morgantown. But is this more of a group that gets after the quarterback in the passing game? Do they hold up really well against the run? Is it a mix of both? What's kind of been their strength so far this year?
Yeah, both. I mean, they've plugged the run, and really they've been able to create pressure. That's been one of the biggest differences with this defense over last year. West Virginia was not very good. Even if they had some good players up front, they weren't very good at creating pressure. And I think you're seeing that, they've blitzed well when it's been timely. They've been able to defeat blocks one-on-one. So it's pretty much what you want out of your front so far. I think that it's hard. West Virginia got some guys in the portal, took some chances on some guys that really hadn't played a lot where they had been before. And really, you can go up and down the list at every spot on this defense. It's hard to find one where you'd say through 4 games, that guy was a total miss, which is the exact opposite of what happened the year before. West Virginia went out and got a bunch of guys, and you felt, they really plugged these holes, and like most of them weren't good. Mm-hmm. But that really hasn't been kind of what they've done. They've had a lot of success with transfers. So you kind of think last year was a one-off, and this year, everybody's pretty much played up to their potential so far.
You talk about secondary safeties getting better. What's the situation at corner this season for the Mountaineers, and how has that position group done so far?
Another one of those transfer guys, Beanie Bishops. He's held down one side, transfer from Minnesota. He was an all-conference player before he transferred from Western Kentucky. So he has a lot of experience. A guy that's played a lot. He's been really good for West Virginia. He'll take some chances. He's aggressive, but so far has really kind of played the role. The other side has been Malachi Ruffin. He's a former walk-on, but he's really, really improved over his career. There were some young guys that were ahead of him on the depth chart, and quite simply, he's just outplayed them. Guys that were thought to be more talented, more potential. He's just outplayed them. The depth behind those two is a concern. West Virginia has 2 guys, Andrew Wilson-Lamp and Jacoby Spells, that they're really excited about, young guys, but neither of them have really played up to their potential so far. So if West Virginia would get an injury there, coming into the season, the biggest question was will linebacker, and It's safe to say that Trey Lathan has filled that. Now, it's unquestionably that cornerback spot. If West Virginia gets an injury or if one of those guys comes out, who's going to step up there and who's going to play?
What is, I guess, big picture question for you? What does Neal Brown need to show this season? Is it just as simple as the wins and losses? Is it kind of taking a step in the right direction after, a few down years? What are the fans looking for from this specific West Virginia team to, I guess, show progress in the right direction?
I was going to say that question is totally dependent on who you're talking to.
Okay.
Neal Brown is sort of a divisive subject here. for some fans. Some fans, we've gotten to the point now where, 3-1 isn't good enough, which is kind of crazy because I think any rational person would say 3-1 with West Virginia's schedule is a home run at this point. But some people are excited to be winning again. West Virginia is a proud football program. I know that they've struggled some, really most of the time since they've joined the Big 12, but this is a team that's used to winning, and winning in bunches. And it's been an adjustment, for some fans. They've struggled with that. I think that what Neil's got to continue to win. Winning matters the most, but some fans want to see it be a little bit more prettier, if that makes sense. They don't want to be confused with Iowa by any means. They're used to scoring points. They want to see some offense. For as good as West Virginia has played, realistically, some of these games are coin flips. That Texas Tech game was quite literally a coin flip. Came down to one play. You don't want to continue to play these type of games where it's a coin flip, because as West Virginia's seen, you go back and look at West Virginia's record in the Big 12 under Neil Brown. They've lost a lot of one-possession games. They've won a lot of one-possession games. And the margin of error there is razor thin. So some fans want to see improvement, all around. A lot of people have asked me, what's a win total? What's a win total? I think for the administration, he gets the 6 or 7 wins, he's fine. For some fans, that's going to be okay. This team was picked last. You said at the top. For some fans, it's simply not going to be good enough. It's year 5. They want to see some. For as much turnover and as crazy as college football has gone, it still is year 5. You have to show some tangible progress, and 7-5 is not going to be progress for some parts of the fans. So it really depends on who you talk to.
When we come back, we'll break down the keys to this game and just what it would take for both teams to get victory. So we'll do that with Keenan Cummings next here on Locked On Horned Frogs. Final segment here. Again, you can follow Keenan on Twitter @RivalsKeenan. How big is the turnover battle for West Virginia? I mean, I know they've been able to force some. Have both quarterbacks protected the ball so far? That's football 101, but is that one of the huge keys for this team against an offense in TCU that's been successful this season, is just limiting extra possessions for the other team?
Yeah, I would have said it was paramount. It has to happen for West Virginia to win, but they lost the turnover battle last week and somehow won.
Okay, yeah.
So, I do think it's important, though, especially playing on the road, regardless of what quarterback plays, especially if it's Mark Hill. You got to take care of the football. They had 2 turnovers last week. One of them was not his fault. One of them was a terrible young quarterback throw. Just didn't see the guy, threw it late. That happens. Mm-hmm. The other one was a strike, and it just bounced right off the wide receiver's chest, went up in the air and went to the defender. So, and Neil would argue tooth and nail that should be a fumble, not an interception, but it is what it is. I think that they've got to take care of the football. I mean, if you're going on the road, it's just pretty commonplace. You got to take care of the football, and you got to avoid dumb mistakes. And that's the one difference. If you had to boil it down offensively, especially for West Virginia this year, and you can even argue defensively as well, just those dumb penalties, dumb mistakes, beating themselves. This team is the exact opposite of a year ago. It has not beat itself. They have taken advantage of opportunities that other teams have given them, and they've capitalized. Last year, West Virginia handed out those opportunities and beat themselves over and over and over again. That Pitt game to open the year last year is the absolute, that pretty much set the tone for the rest of the year for this team. So they haven't beat themselves. They can't beat themselves. So if they can avoid those 2 things and play good defense, and be able to score enough points, I don't know. Like I said, we're going to find out just how good this West Virginia defense is against a high tempo, TCU offense that can score a lot of points. But if they can score enough, play solid defense, and not do some dumb mistakes, I think that they're going to be in this football game.
Has the defense seen a team with this pace? I mean, I know Penn State hurries it up. Have they talked at all about, Kendall Briles wants to run a lot of plays. He wants to get to the line, just the frantic nature of the TCU offense?
Yeah, the TCU or Texas Tech last week. Yeah,
that's right, yeah.
The key to that stuff is just winning first down, and that's what West Virginia did. You win first down, it slows that tempo down a lot. Mm-hmm. You can still tempo it, but usually you're putting yourself in a hole.
Right.
If you win first down there, and I think West Virginia understands that. They've done fairly well against tempo during Jordan Leslie's tenure here. Now, Texas Tech a year ago That was not fun for West Virginia. They'd get 8-9 yards on first down, just continue to move up and down the field. It looked like a video game. I think they'd still be scoring right now if the game was playing. But, if West Virginia can win on first down and force them into some difficult situations, TCU wants to run the ball. Obviously, West Virginia wants to run the ball. So whichever team can run the ball better and create some plays, I think is going to win this football game.
One guy I didn't ask you about on offense, Cole Taylor. Really impressive frame, 6'7", transfer from LSU. I know you mentioned they're still trying to figure out that receiver position. Is he sort of become like the de facto go-to guy for the moment for this offense in that respect?
I'm actually kind of sad I forgot to mention him because he's been very, very good. West Virginia went out. They wanted to find a pass-catching tight end. It's kind of a joke around here, the tight end position, because – they do a lot in the run game here, but they have not caught the ball much, over the last couple of years. And Cole Taylor needs like 8 more yards to pass the entire total of the wide receiver room in receiving yards from all of last season. And we're heading into game 5.
Okay.
So they're going to use him. He's not necessarily Travis Kelce, but they're going to use him. He can get open. He's got a big frame. He can run too. So they used him in the red zone a lot. Last 2 weeks, he has a touchdown catch. He finds a way to get open. I think that West Virginia is excited about what he can do. When I was mentioning the pass catchers, I was not including him. He's been the one reliable for them so far. So he's a weapon, and they're going to use him.
If Neil Brown could script things tomorrow, what is the kind of ideal way this game plays out for West Virginia to come away with a victory?
They've got to play better offensively. They got to be able to throw the football a little bit to loosen the box because TCU obviously is going to try to make them. It's hard to run with a lot of people. They've got to be able to do enough in the passing game to keep TCU honest. Play solid defensively. Don't beat themselves. Continue to stop the run. And then do all the other things that they've done, as I mentioned earlier. Play well on special teams. West Virginia has more punt return yards already this year than they did last year. And the year before almost, and they've given up 0 punt return yards to the other team. So they're winning that net putting category. Special teams, kicker hasn't missed a kick yet. Kickoff's been a little shaky, but it's been fair, through the first. So as long as they just take care of business, do what they do, I think they're going to have a chance. A lot of people thought this West Virginia football team was going to be a lot worse than what it is. It has questions. It has concerns. Do not mistake what I'm saying. To say that I think West Virginia is going to go down and beat TCU. But I do think that they're going to be in the game as long as they do what they do.
Well, he's Keenan Cummings. You can follow him at Rivals Keenan. Again, it's wvsports.com. Any preview content that Horned Frog fans should be on the lookout for this week from you guys, Keenan?
We got all kinds of stuff. Come on over. You're more than welcome to jump on the message board too. The fans are usually pretty friendly. They're a lot more friendly in person. They probably offer you a pepperoni roll and a cold beverage, but can't do that digitally. But you're more than welcome to come over. Try to look at it from all angles. Got stuff from the TCU side and got stuff from our side as well. So invite you over to check out all of our coverage. A lot of it is free, throughout the week. So give it a look.
Great stuff. Thank you, Keenan. This is Locked On Horned Frogs, and it's your team. We do the show every day.